fun. Then let me go on a little bit just so I can get through all this. And playing with projections of images on top of images and images of faces on faces. And then, let me back up a little bit. Okay. And then the end of this piece is really sort of my favorite part, making the audience look at something that appeared to be choreography, not very interesting choreography, sort of forcing them to watch it for about a minute and a half, where they don't necessarily know what's going on. And again, Lisa's 5 months pregnant, so originally she's also hopping with us the whole time, but I kind of like this version. So what's going on right now is the camera is actually capturing still frames of us every time we hop into the air, and then we'll play them back in a stop frame animation of us floating through the air and then being manipulated in time so that it goes back and forth, sort of at random intervals. The technology wasn't quite perfect, and we could never quite figure out exactly when we were supposed to be up in the air and when we were supposed to be on the ground. We did the best we could. So sometimes we're flying through the air and sometimes we're still on the ground. The software that I use to generate all this stuff is called Isadora, and it's a really amazing programming environment that's, compared to some of the other things out there, it's relatively simple to use, although this particular patch looks like sort of one of those scenes in Star Trek where they have to go up some cubby hole to fix some wires, and it's just this massive tangle of, so this patch is just this chaos of tangled wires. Okay, let's move on to another piece. Yes, thank you very much. That was fantastic. What's that? Did you want to say a few words about that when I go on to it? Why don't you say, do you want to say stuff about certain, or can we just go on and just scan through someone? Or do you want to do
I wanted to
something?
talk about someone first.
Okay.
Okay. So hi, I'm Lisa Wymore, and I thought, before we got into the other piece, I would talk a little bit about how I think about technology, which is often from much more of a theoretical background. So Sheldon often is making all these crazy patches and things like that. I help with the technology in many ways, but not into the deep detail of programming. But anyway, so I thought I would talk a little bit about some things that I've been really thinking about lately that are much more theoretical in nature that might help us think more about what we're going to see next and what we've seen and things like that. And I've been reading a lot of this great theorist named Bruno Latour, who has a book called Pandora's Hope, and he is describing technology and objects in our world in a way that really makes sense to me. He talks about the folding of humans and non-humans into each other. That we often think that technology is a separate thing from us, that it's something we control or it's an object. But if we can start thinking of getting out of the kind of dichotomy of subject and object and thinking more of actors and actants, that we are both acting upon each other. The technology acts upon us and we act upon it, and it's this relationship that's taking place, or this, I don't know if it's a relationship, but it's also, he calls it like a institution or a system or a collective, often he will say. So one thing to think about in all of this too is the notion of mediation, about how we are often mediated, and we can also intervene and interact with technology in different ways as well. There's a few kind of analogies I would like to draw out from this particular reading that I've been into lately, which is the crossing of these boundaries, that we can't just think of ourselves as just humans existing as solo figures in the world, that we're part of a huge fabric. We're part of institutions and corporations. We're part of this formation of realities, and we're part of groups and organizations and cultures and all these things that tie us and bind us together. And so are our objects, or the non-humans as well. Like he talks about, like a gun doesn't just exist. The objects that aren't part of our fabric just are buried things, or things that we don't interact with. But that technologies in themselves interact in this whole fabric with us. And to start seeing this further. So there's a couple kind of great analogies I'd like to bring up. One is that if you think of a speed bump as a type of technology, it's there, it has a purpose to slow cars down or to injure cars if they go over them. But it also has this huge story with it too. You know, in order for the speed bump to get placed there, it had to pass through all this politics, and the town had to vote it, and it had to be decided, and where it was placed, and how it was going to go. It was part of a road, and where's the road going? And so the speed bump itself is deeply interwoven with our stories, with our interests with it. Just as the speed bump acts upon us when we go over it, it could injure our car. It makes us do something as well. It makes us slow down. So the technologies, I have to hold this microphone in this way. You know, I'm interacting with it. It was formed by a human, but yet it forms me as well. So that's just something to think about. The other thing that really has been blowing my mind lately is he talks about these, and I don't know if I like his term, but he calls them black boxes. That within this room, in this space, these technologies themselves, this cord with the plastic wrapping, with the wires inside, with all of this that has come with it, is filled with just hundreds of what he calls black boxes that are hidden away and smoothed over so that it becomes a functioning artifact for me to deal with. And when it breaks, it opens up. Well, what's broken? Is it the connector? Is it how it's plugged in? Is the wire broken inside? You start to realize, he calls opening up the black boxes. Well, how are the wires made, and where did the wires come from, and why did we invent wires in the first place? And where did this whole mechanism come to hold this? Is the casing broken? And where did we develop cylindrical casings? I mean, it goes on and on in this huge layering with how things were built. And so if you start like breaking open the black boxes in this theater, in this room, you start to realize that all of us are constantly dealing with technologies that have been smoothed over or hidden from us. And so that's just changing my whole, like if you think about driving a car, we're all just zooming around in these cars, and like honking at each other. But the car itself, the tires, it has this millennium of history of development with us. So we have worked with it, it has worked with us. We are these actors and actants with one another. What else did I want to bring up? Another great way to think of it too is that planes don't fly, like a Boeing 747 does not fly, but the airline, the institution, the collective around the airline is what allows it to fly. There had to be a runway and people to go in, security and things to check and all of that. So that to stop seeing the technology as so separate from how we live, that we have these fabrics or these collectives that we're constantly in play with. Yeah, humans are always the properties of institutions and apparatuses, and artifacts are as well. They're always part of our institutions as well. So this piece that I'm going to show next is a piece that is very new, but I'm realizing that when we worked with these robotic cameras, or one camera, and it made me start to think, well, what were we really trying to do with this, this non-human? We were allowing it to sort of see just as we see, and it was starting to, it has these 10 pre-programmed locations where it can move to, this robotic camera, so it can create, what we wanted to do was create a film of the live performance that was happening, so we wanted the camera to see the institution of this relationship